Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing another video from Grab the Lantern today. Now, it's Wednesday, and the patch hasn't quite gone live yet, and this is due to the social engineering attack on Riot HQ that has caused almost all of their patches across the board from various different games to become delayed, and as a result of this, 13.2 is not releasing today. Instead, Riot have a B patch that they're going to be hotfixing to the live servers in order to give the vast majority of the changes that they had planned for 13.2 onto the server as of Thursday, 1/26. So for those of you who are waiting for the patch, it is coming out tomorrow, and I wanted to take some time today and talk through the top 5 changes of what is patch 13.1b instead of 13.2. I'll let you guys know what the biggest changes are this week, and there are a lot of really important changes here, you guys, so let's go ahead and dive right into things with the number 5 change, the Heimerdinger nerfs. Now, Barrel won everyone's hearts and minds with his cheesy, wacky support Heimerdinger pick at Worlds this last year, but unfortunately, Heimerdinger has long overstayed his welcome and is now starting to see play in casual as well at the support role. And this has been an issue for a variety of reasons, chief among them Heimerdinger's relative lack of counterplay, but suffice to say, Heimerdinger support is showing up everywhere, and it's not great. As a result, Riot are nerfing down support Heimerdinger specifically. They're trying to buff up his AP ratios while reducing some of the base value from his Q and his W. I don't expect these to fully solve Heimerdinger's problems. I think he's going to need to be Olaf'd before, or VGU'd, before Riot have the ability of really solving the problems that he brings, but this will make him at least a little bit more tolerable in the meantime. The number 4 change on this week's patch are the Yuumi nerfs, and guys, I'm gonna be real with you, Yuumi is getting Olaf. These are massive nerfs. Now, her passive W and E are all receiving some degree of nerf to them. Generally speaking, these aren't that big of a deal. The biggest things are the base stat nerfs to Yuumi. Her base health has gone down by 50 at level 1, her health regen has been decreased as well, but more importantly, her attack range has been decreased by 75, which is a crazy huge reduction for a champion that's this squishy. Now, Riot partially compensated for this by giving her a new mechanic where when her passive auto attack is available, she gets an extra 25 range on that attack only. And that's nice, but fundamentally a Yuumi that is playing proactively, who's hopping off her partner in order to help get a little bit more auto attack damage through, or who's proccing her passive, or generally doing things that don't involve sticking to your partner and going AFK, those play patterns have all been nerfed. And admittedly, this is for a good reason. Yuumi is still basically a pick-or-ban champion at the professional level, and Riot really want to just stop her from being played professionally while they work on her mid-scope / VGU update, you know, that kind of thing. So it makes sense, but it does mean in the meantime that if you are trying to play an active Yuumi, you are going to feel much worse, and if you're playing Yuumi in general, you're going to feel significantly worse than you did before. As a result, it might be time to hang up the cat until she gets her mid-scope update, at which point she can probably come back out to play. Moving on to the number 3 changes here, I wanted to talk about the Grievous Wounds adjustment. Now, Riot have basically tried to make Grievous Wounds significantly more accessible because they want players who successfully identify that they need it to be able to buy it and have the stat available when they need it at the level they need it. As a result, Riot have actually changed the values on all Grievous Wounds items to the 40% value. So if you buy an Oblivion Orb, if you buy a Morellonomicon, they both apply 40% Grievous Wounds, which is really nice. And they've also made some small changes to a bunch of the Grievous Wounds items that you're able to buy to make them a little bit more of a satisfying purchase, irrespective of the fact that they have Grievous Wounds. So now you'll feel good about having the item, and it comes with Grievous Wounds, as opposed to building the item for the Grievous Wounds, and the item is sort of mediocre. Now, this has a couple of implications. First, it means that you can buy an Oblivion Orb or a Bramble Vest in the early stages of the game and just sit on it, because it doesn't get that much better for you by upgrading, unless it's like a particular stat that you really want. Rammus, for example, is pretty much always going to upgrade the Bramble Vest into the Thornmail as fast as possible, but other champions, you can sit on the Bramble and not feel bad about it. There are also a couple of other notes on these items that I wanted to quickly touch on. Chemtech Putrefier no longer applies the Grievous Wounds effect to the ally that you're buffing. It only applies to your damage. This is very important, so keep in mind if you're an enchanter, you need to be dealing magic damage to champions to apply the Grievous Wounds debuff from Putrefier. And Mortal Reminder has actually had the Zeal in its build swapped out for a Last Whisper, so it gives armor penetration now instead of attack speed and movement speed. So keep these in mind when you are building these items, but generally speaking, Grievous Wounds should be much more accessible than before, and therefore a pretty decent nerf to any champion that relies on healing. Put a pin in that, we'll talk about it here in a sec. The number 2 change on this week's patch are the nerfs to fighter items. Now, Riot are trying to address some of the frustration that players have with fighter champions in general. Fighters can be very difficult to deal with because of their unique blend of damage and durability at the same time. As a result, Riot are trying to separate out the durability from ability haste. They want you to pick one or the other depending on what item you're buying, and instead of getting both of them in the same purchase, this is intended to then push fighters' item spikes back to third item. And you get your mythic, you get your sustain item, and then you get your ability haste item, as opposed to on live right now, where you can kind of get all the stats you want in the same stat balls. This will result in a lot of fighters having a much later power spike in the game and being a lot less relevant in the early stages, especially they'll feel a lot worse onto items. A couple of important notes here as well. Ravenous Hydra now gives lifesteal instead of Omnivamp, but the cleave damage triggers lifesteal, and Maul Mortius has also gained lifesteal instead of Omnivamp. Finally, Death's Dance no longer heals you for as much on a takedown. It's now 50% bonus AD from 120%, so you really don't heal for very much. You can't count on the big burst of healing that you would ordinarily get off of Death's Dance. Generally, this is going to make fighters a lot weaker, and this is then going to tie into the number 1 change that I wanted to talk about on this week's patch, which are the adjustments to the AD carry class. There are a couple other things that are relevant for Marksmen, but I wanted to talk about these two in particular, the Infinity Edge and Navori Quickblades changes. They both now have their critical strike requirement reduced to 40% from 60%, and this is massive. I actually can't overstate how big this is. This now means that a Marksman with a mythic item can buy an Infinity Edge second item and immediately spike. Crit building marksmen are now spiking at 2 items again, and that is a very relevant number to keep in mind, because whenever marksmen are allowed to spike at 2 items, they become the most important champions in the game, period. And it's because they get so much of their late game stats immediately that they become instantly the most important champion on your team, right? They are a scaling class, but because they get so many of their late game stats right off the bat on 2 items, it only gets better for them from there, but they're also extremely strong at that point. This, in conjunction with the fighter item changes, pushing them back to a third item spike, as well as the Grievous Wounds, which I think disproportionately affect fighters more than they affect marksmen or other classes, means that in general, the focus for games is going to be bot side as opposed to top side. Your AD carry is going to be significantly more relevant to you than your top laner is, assuming of course that your AD carry is building crit. If you're an on-hit carry or a lethality carry, you're a lot less affected by these changes. You're not going to be as strong as before. But certainly if you have the ability to build crit, you probably should do it on this patch, because you're going to be significantly stronger at 2 items than before. And if you're playing top lane, I would suggest you start dusting off tanks, because the focus of games is going to be a lot more heavily on bot side, especially if what the LEC casters were talking about this week, with the games already being bot focused prior to these changes, was correct. Those are the top 5 changes of this week's patch. Let me know what you guys are looking most forward to in the comment section below. I am honestly dreading the Marksman changes, but maybe you guys are welcome to, ready to hail in our new Marksman overlords. But let me know down in the comment section below what you think. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I will talk to you all later.